Hello, welcome to my channel. You're watching What Helen Reads and I'm Helen, and today I've got another romance recommendation video for you, and today we're talking about caretaking, so heroes who have taken care of their heroines. So the first book I want to recommend is Chosen by a Sinner by Michelle Hurd, and this is book 4 in the Sinners series. Now this particular one is an Italian mafia hero, and in addition to the caretaking trope, the additional tropes in this one is that it's a brother's best friend. They also have a Vegas wedding, so it's one of those where they both get drunk in Vegas and then wake up married, so that's the sort of trope. And the couple we're following in this one is Luca and Maria. Now Luca is an Italian mafia hero, like I said. He's head of his family and part of the priesthood, and he's best friends with Victor, who is a Russian mafia hero. He gets his story in book 6, and then, like I say, they're best friends, both part of the priesthood, and Maria happens to be kind of Victor's sister, if you like. Now it's Maria's birthday, and she goes out to celebrate, and in fact she wants to go to Vegas to celebrate, and so Luca and Victor are supposed to be going with her to make sure that she's protected, but also to enjoy celebrations with her. But Victor is unable to go, so she ends up going with Luca by herself, and they're having some fun in Vegas. Now the thing is, both Luca and Maria have always really liked each other. Maria is in love with Luca, Luca is in love with Maria, but they haven't ever got together because one, it's sort of a little bit taboo. Luca knows that he would have to win Maria round in order to get her father to agree to marry him, and they both think that the other person doesn't actually like them. However, they finally get their chance to be together when, like I say, Maria gets very drunk while they're in Vegas, and suggests to Luca that they get married. And Luca takes her up on this offer. Before she can change her mind, he absolutely takes her to the chapel. They get married, and then when they wake up in the morning, she then realises that they are married, and Luca doesn't want to tell her that he was completely sober, and that he kind of took advantage of her, if you like, and so pretends that he was drunk as well. Now Maria sort of flips out and says, what are we going to do? We're going to have to tell our parents, and they do that. And at first Maria is very adamant that she's going to get this marriage annulled and they need to sort it out. But Maria's father says, no, in fact, you need to stay together. It would look really bad if people found out that you got married and then got divorced straight away, or had their marriage annulled. So actually you need to go through with this marriage now and stay together for at least 6 months. And so they then start this sort of marriage. Now Luca is determined that this is going to be a true marriage, so pretty much forces Maria to sleep in his bedroom and all of that good stuff. Now it's not long before this couple kind of get together, so because they've been in love with each other up to this point, obviously it doesn't take long for Maria to come around and for them to be together properly as a couple. And this happens quite early on in this book, so that's really nice to see. It's really swoony. We don't have any kind of, like, you know, third act breakups with this couple. They are, you know, pretty quickly in love with each other. The thing is, obviously they're in the mafia, so things are not smooth sailing, and they have a lot of enemies. And then unfortunately Maria gets kidnapped. She actually gets quite brutally tortured during this kidnapping as well, and she kind of manages to sort of escape, but Luca is already on his way to rescue her, and when he finally sort of catches up with her, makes sure that she's safe, but she is quite severely injured. And this is where the caretaking part comes into this one, because then we have quite a long portion of this book where Luca is absolutely taking care of Maria, tending to her injuries, making sure she's safe, and spending more time together. So like I said, this one is really swoony, really nice. This couple really are in love with each other, and it's a great, if you like caretaking in your romances, then this is a really good example of that, and one I'd definitely recommend. So moving from mafia to a monster romance, particularly a Naga hero, King Cobra by Naomi Lucas, and this is book 2 in the Naga Bride series, which I've been really loving, and I just need to actually finish the series off because I've got 1 or 2 books left in this series. I think the next book is coming out soon. It may have come out already actually, so I need to look that up. But in this one, like I say, it's a monster romance. Our heroine Daisy is human, but our hero Zaku is a Naga, so he's a half human, half snake sort of creature, and he's the King Cobra. The concept of this sort of story is that humans had to flee Earth thousands of years before because of a war that broke out, and Earth became uninhabitable, and they have taken to the stars and now live in space and on other planets. However, they are still fighting a war, and they believe that there is some technology on Earth that will help them. And so, as so many years have passed, they decided to send a platoon of soldiers, but scientists as well, down to Earth to find out if Earth is now habitable, but also to track down these weapons. And when they get there, they find that Earth is now occupied by this species of Naga, basically. And the Naga know exactly where the technology is, and they agree to tell the humans where it is in exchange for their women, because these snakes have kind of have run out of women, so they can't procreate anymore, and so they set their sights on these human women. Daisy is one of our human women. She was left to fend for herself in the forest, and the snakes all decided to chase after her. King Cobra is the one that actually catches up with her, captures her and takes her captive, but she finds a way to escape and make her way back to kind of base camp, if you like, where these other humans are. When she gets there though, she discovers that all is not what it seems. She thought that it was just a couple of corrupt humans that did this deal with the snakes, and she's going back to try and, you know, tell the powers that be what's going on. But when she gets back to base camp, she realizes that the powers that be do actually know what's going on, and therefore she realizes that no help is coming. But she tries to escape the camp once more and takes a shuttlecraft, but then it is shot down out of the sky, and she crashes. And when she crashes, she has quite severe injuries, not only from the crash, but also the shuttle kind of sets on fire, so she has some burn injuries as well. And King Cobra kind of tracks her to where she is, and with the help of a couple of other snakes and another human from that we've seen in book 1, Zaku takes her back to his lair, if you like, the place where he lives. But he actually lives in this really sort of grand property on the side of a hill, and it's filled with technology. So he's kind of like taken possession of this building that was there from before when the humans left, but it's filled with an amazing technology, including a medipod, basically, and he's able to put Daisy into this medipod, and over time it starts to heal her injuries and take away you know, the pain that she's in. So Zaku then spends a large portion of this book taking care of Daisy, looking after her in the medipod, and then once she's able to come out of the medipod, helping her to rebuild her strength. And obviously during that time when they're in close proximity together and he's really taking care of her, Daisy's feelings to him really start to change, and they get their HEA. So the next one then is Heartless by Elsie Silver, and this is a small town sort of contemporary romance, cowboy romance. In addition to some caretaking that goes on in here, it is also a nanny romance, single dad, age gap, and grumpy sunshine. Now, probably most of you have at least heard of this book if you haven't read it, but if you haven't read it, I absolutely recommend it. It's absolutely fantastic. And in this one, we're following Cade and Willa. Now, Cade is our single dad. He has a son called Luke, and he is very busy on his ranch, and he needs someone to look after Luke over the summer holidays. Now, he's pretty much exhausted all his options from the women in town, because none of them are suitable to be the nanny to his son, and a lot of them are only trying to get into Cade's pants, essentially, because he's an extremely eligible bachelor in town. The heroine from book 1, Summer, happens to be best friends with a lady called Willa, who's the heroine of this one, and Willa is at a loose end for the summer holidays because she normally works in her brother's bar, but the bar is closed for renovations, and so she has a couple of months where she is not going to be doing any work. And so Summer suggests to Cade that Willa is the one that comes and be the nanny to Luke. Now at first Cade is not too happy about this. He doesn't have a very good first impression of Willa at all. He's not sure that she is the right person to look after Luke, but he's out of options and he reluctantly agrees. And of course Willa is also going to be a live-in nanny, so now they're living together in close proximity to each other, and over time they start to fall in love with each other, particularly because Cade loves the way that Willa is with his son, and Willa falls in love with Luke just as much as she falls in love with Cade. Now there's a really sweet caretaking moment in here when Luke gets really sick. He's got some sort of stomach bug, and Willa looks after Luke, but it's not long before she catches the same thing that Luke has got and also is very sick herself, and of course then Cade steps up and takes care of Willa, and it's really swoony when that happens, so would highly recommend. Then the next one is The Enforcer by Renee Rose, and this is book 3 in the Chicago Bratva series. It's a Russian mafia series, and in this one we are following Oleg and Story. Now Oleg is our Russian enforcer. He's also a mute hero. We find out that he's actually lost his tongue because a previous boss of his removed it so he couldn't share any of his secrets, so it's pretty sad, and Oleg therefore kind of doesn't really communicate very well with people. He stubbornly refused to learn kind of like sign language or makes any attempt to communicate with the people around him, and he is kind of like this big hulking brooding hero. However, he has got his eyes on Story. Now Story is a musician in a local club. She sings beautifully and plays a guitar, and Oleg can't help himself, but every Saturday night he goes to where she's playing and he sits and listens to her music, and so he's kind of been mildly stalking her for about 12 months. Now one night he gets the opportunity to drive her home because she doesn't have a way to get home, and he offers her a lift and she accepts because she obviously knows him. She's seen him around for the last 12 months at all of her gigs, and he drops her off at home. Now as he drops her off, he is set upon by some enemies of his that are actually trying to kill him, and he is left pretty badly injured, and Story then takes him into her flat and caretakes him for a couple of days while he recovers until he's well enough to kind of report back to his mafia boss and make his way home. So I really like this one because it is the heroine who has a chance to caretake for this big brooding mafia hero, and really look after him through his injuries and make sure that he's okay. And I really enjoyed this one, and I've been enjoying this series so far. Then I thought I'd throw in a historical novel, and I've got here Yours Until Dawn by Teresa Madeiros, and this is, like I say, a historical romance, and it's kind of loosely a Beauty and the Beast retelling. It's a second chance romance, and in this one we have a blind hero, so it's quite interesting because the last one I recommended was a mute hero, and in this one we have a blind hero, and we are following Gabrielle and Samantha in this one. So Gabrielle is our very grumpy beastly character in this one, and he was part of the Navy. He was injured during a battle and he has been left without his sight, and he had a sort of a woman that he was in love with, thought he was going to marry, but she kind of turns from him after he gets this injury, and then he kind of like slinks off to his estate in the country. It's called Fairchild Park, and he then lives in this house in isolation. He always insists that the curtains are closed. He's very grumpy, not particularly nice to his sort of his housekeeper, his servants, if you like, and yeah, he's you know, absolutely spiraling into a state of despair, and shuts himself out from society. Now really he needs a nurse to take care of him, and one day Samantha turns up to basically be his nurse, and he tries to push her away and force her to leave, and he's quite mean to her, but she holds her ground. She's quite tenacious, she's very, very stubborn, and she's not going to let this very, very grumpy man push her away. And so she starts to make changes around the house. She opens the curtains, she gives it a good clean, she starts to transform things and then help him deal with his blindness by helping him sort of navigate around the house, move the furniture so things are easier for him to move around, and so generally take care of him and make sure that he's okay, and then their kind of relationship goes from there. So I really like the setup for this one. I love Beauty and the Beast stories, and while I'm not a huge historical romance reader, I did enjoy this one and would recommend. Then next up we have The Fake Out by Stephanie Archer, and this is a very recent read for me, but it was also a 5-star read. Absolutely loved it. It will probably be one of my favourites of 2024. So I was able to get my hands on this one, which I was very pleased to do. Now this is book 2 in the Vancouver Storm series, and this one is a nice hockey romance, and it's also a fake dating situation as well. What I really liked about this is that there is no third act breakup in this one, and I really did appreciate that, and it absolutely didn't need to have any drama at the end whatsoever. So in this one we're following Rory and Hazel, and obviously Rory is our ice hockey player. He has known Hazel since he was in high school. In fact, Hazel was one of his tutors in high school, so she basically is the same age as him, but basically helped him with some classes where he needed additional support, and then they ended up finally working together, because after she finished university she became a physiotherapist and ended up working at the same ice hockey team where Rory now plays, and they have been friends during this time. Now Hazel previously had a boyfriend called Connor, who she was madly in love with, followed to college, but he was not a great boyfriend to her at all, cheated on her and broke her heart, and they split up, and she's been nursing this broken heart ever since, and she doesn't trust men. She's not been in another long-term relationship, and in fact she tends to err towards one-night stands and not seeing a man for a second time, because she just doesn't want to get attached to anyone again, doesn't trust them. Now Connor is also an ice hockey player, and he ends up being transferred to their team. So now Connor is on the same team, and he is assigned to her, or she's assigned to him as his physiotherapist. And of course this is very awkward indeed, and she really doesn't want to be in the situation where, you know, she has to be in close proximity with him. Rory realises how uncomfortable she is and kind of offers her a deal, and they agree to fake date so that Connor leaves Hazel alone basically, and Rory is there to offer a little bit of protection against this guy who's probably going to try and make her life a bit miserable. And of course, as they start to fake date, their friendship continues to grow. They go out on more dates, they're actually seen together more often, and part of this is that she has never learned how to ice skate, and he basically decides that he's going to teach her how to skate. Now unfortunately, during one of her lessons she falls over and hurts her ankle, and so of course Rory has to kind of swoop in and pick her up and take her off the ice and make sure that she's taken care of, and then he also makes sure that she gets home and that she puts up her leg, that she puts it on ice and all of that good stuff. So there is a very small but beautiful part of this book where he gets to take care of her and look after her injury. So like I said, I absolutely love this book, 5-star read, and I thought it was a cute little caretaking moment in this one. So then I want to recommend The Tallest Tower by Amelia Finn, and this is book 1 in the Underbelly Enchanted series. This is Amelia Finn's newest series that she's just started, and there is only 1 book so far in this one. It's a mafia romance, cat to captive situation and enemies to lovers, and in this one we're following Felix and Christabel. Now Felix is head of this mafia family. He is extremely cruel. We've seen him in a couple of other, so Amelia Finn's worlds all tend to interconnect. So Felix is a character we've seen in her May at Justice series, and we haven't liked him at all in that one because he is very cruel and unfeeling and all of that good stuff that we love about mafia heroes. Now essentially, Christabel is a local journalist and she is digging into Felix's family. She's trying to prove that he is in the mafia, that he's a criminal, and kind of take him down. And of course, she starts to write some newspaper articles about him and his nefarious business activities. And so he doesn't take too kindly to this and decides that he needs to deal with her. He's not quite sure what to do with her, but he ends up deciding that he's going to kidnap her, take her captive basically in his house, which he does. Once he's got her, of course, he doesn't 100% know what to do with her, because now he's even in a more sticky situation. He definitely doesn't want to unalive her, but letting her go would probably not be too good. So he's got to find some way to convince her not to write any more stories about him. However, she's very, very stubborn and is not going to give in to him so quickly. However, unbeknownst to Felix, Christabel is a diabetic, and while she is his captive, she is not eating properly and she doesn't get the opportunity to take her insulin. Now, because she's so stubborn, she doesn't tell him and is trying to find a way to escape. But of course, it's not too long before she becomes quite ill because of this situation, and ends up kind of, you know, almost going into a coma. Things are not good at all. She gets very, very sick very, very quickly. When Felix realises how serious this is, he knows that he can't call an ambulance or take her to the hospital. So he ends up calling his sister-in-law, Minka, who again is from the Met Justice series. Minka is basically a coroner and has medical knowledge. Of course, she's livid. She's like, Felix, what have you done to this woman? I can't believe you brought her here. What the hell is going on? And I can't believe you weren't taking care of her. Of course, Minka isn't going to let anything happen to Christabel, so she does bring the things she needs in order to make her healthy again, but is not too happy with Felix, let's just say that. But of course, it means that Christabel is sick for a prolonged period of time, and Felix absolutely has to make sure that he stays by her side, make sure that she's okay, and when she starts to sort of recover from the immediate issue, make sure that she continues to look after herself by eating the right foods and taking the insulin when she needs to take it. So I really liked this one because we have a really, really sort of like, you know, a very gruff, callous sort of hero who's taken this woman captive, but then starts to very much feel guilty about the situation he's placed her in and the fact that he has put her in quite a serious state with her health, but is quite swoony then when he takes care of her. And finally then I want to recommend Aldo by Melanie Morland, and this is a really, really sweet mafia romance. It's book 1 in the Men of the Fall series. This is a Canadian mafia romance. They are sort of in the Niagara region in this one, and I would say in addition to a little bit of caretaking that happens in this one, it's also a kind of a workplace romance. And we're following Violet, and as the name of the book suggests, the hero is Aldo. Now, Aldo is the right-hand man of the head of this mafia Roman, and he is basically his business partner, does everything for him, but also a bit of his bodyguard as well. But one of the things that Aldo does as part of his duties is to kind of vet any new workers, because basically Roman owns a casino, a very, very luxurious casino with restaurants inside, and obviously they need to hire staff like croupiers and servers and things like that. So Violet applies for a job at this casino because she is desperate for some cash, and Aldo kind of interviews her and gives her a job in one of their restaurants. Of course, he takes an instant liking to Violet. This is a sort of book where they both take a really instant liking to each other. They're very attracted to each other, and quite quickly she starts to work for him, but they start to exchange text messages, give each other little gifts and things, and then decide that they're going to try and get their attraction out of their system by having a one-night stand together. And of course, it's not going to last just one night. They're going to want more from the situation. But both of them fight this desire to be with each other, because Aldo doesn't believe that he can be in love, doesn't think he deserves to be with somebody, doesn't want to commit to anyone, and Violet has been burned in the past by a previous boyfriend and is kind of reluctant to fully trust Aldo. But of course, very quickly they are going to really start to have feelings for each other. Now, this becomes a caretaking situation when Violet gets quite badly injured by a disgruntled customer. So there's this man who's lost quite a lot of money in the casino, then he goes into the restaurant, starts picking on Violet. He's a very, very rude customer. They manage to move him and get him out of the casino with security, but then this guy kind of takes umbrage against Violet and starts to kind of like stalk her and plot a way that he is going to take his revenge on what he's seen as a massive slight from Violet and from the casino overall. And so one day when she's walking to her car, she gets jumped by this guy and actually attacked by him, and she suffers quite a few injuries. Of course, Aldo figures out what's going on. He goes to her rescue, but isn't there in time to stop her getting injured, and he ends up obviously having to call an ambulance, take her to the hospital, and then when she's ready to come out of hospital, she can't be alone, so he basically takes her back to his house and gets her to stay with him so he can basically take care of her while she fully recovers from her injuries. And of course, this is the first woman that he's ever really brought back to his actual home, and he really enjoys the fact that she is there, and they decide to take their relationship to the next level. So I really, really enjoyed that one, and like I say, it was a very sweet mafia romance. So if you haven't read mafia romances before, it is probably a very good place to start as well, but also a really good example of caretaking. So there you go, there are 8 recommendations for romances that have caretaking element in them. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content from me, and I'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye. Bye bye bye. Minka is sort of a doctor, but she is actually because she has reverse grumpy sunshine. Oh no, it's not reverse.